episode of Woodward's Watercolours. Now today you ask, where are you, Colin? Well, Larne wouldn't be known for being the nicest place on earth, but I have just discovered, I think it's called Chaine Memorial, and it's this gorgeous round tower and a beautiful view of the sea. So I'm going to send the drone up and I'm going to draw this. What I'm planning to do tonight is to print off the image and then we're going to draw it together in the van, which means that we're not going to be affected by passers-by or weather or light or anything like that, which would be pretty cool. I'm also going to make myself some soup, but I'll not put you through me making soup. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to fire the drone up, then I'm going to print off the image from that I'm going to take while I'm out here, and then we're going to paint it together with my little kit that I keep in the car, my little travel kit. So come on and let's explore this area together. Well, I've got my soup prepared, just lentil soup, Heinz lentil soup, an old favourite, and a little half-baked ciabatta which I prepared earlier. I'm so pleased I have a knife. This is my nanny's knife, and always reminds me of her. Just isn't it interesting how little things, lovely to have memories of her here too. And then my little chopping board from the house. I've actually brought matches tonight because I have candles in. I've got my packed coffee, house special, just grinding it away here so that I can have a nice cup of coffee afterwards. Enjoying some Last Man Standing with Tim Allen on the TV via Fire Stick with the lap of the ocean outside, cozy, warm, nice headroom. Doesn't get much better than this. Hope you really enjoyed those drone shots. Really beautiful, isn't it? Just like I've never been here before. 45 years I've lived in this beautiful Emerald Island and I have never been here before. So anyway, I'm going to finish grinding these beans. I'm going to enjoy my soup and some TV, get the candles lit, and then once I've printed off my image, you and I can start painting together. Well, I really enjoyed my soup and half-baked ciabatta. It's the simple things in life. Just sitting with this scene and just getting to enjoy a bit of time's been lovely. So I've printed off the picture that I'm going to use, and it's the little Kodak camera, which is just brilliant, so portable. And this is the scene that we're going to draw, or going to paint together. I'm going to use my Faber Castles. Going to use my Rowney Simply range. They're the gold Taklon synthetic, and a very old Rowney set which you've maybe seen a few times, as it can't even get it open. It doesn't even want to open, my goodness. Oh, I'm nearly broke. Must have stuck. So this is, I probably think 30 or 40 years old, but still got the stuff. And I keep all of this in my little Mala sketchbook or drawing board, which has ample storage inside. And it means that anytime I find myself somewhere, then I can just paint, which is just wonderful. So come on, let's make a start, and let's draw this beautiful little tower in Larne in County Antrim in Northern Ireland together. Come on. Okay, so I've got my plein air sketchbook, which was gifted to me by Seawhite of Brighton, and it's 350 GSM, and I'm not sure, I think, yes, it is actually cold pressed. I think it's got quite kind of small bumps, so we've just got the ferry going past, which is fantastic. Toby and I are hopefully going to be doing a bit of a tour at some point, so that's going to be cool, taking that ferry. Okay, so now this is Chaine Memorial, and I've got my Faber Castel, the Pitt pens, and I'm going to use the, I think it's, is it the small? Yes, it's the small that I want, and then I'm going to go for the medium after to be able to get the different lines. Okay, so what I'm going to do tonight, let me just get in here with this, and the best way to start is just to start. Now I normally start on the top left, but with this I'm just gonna start with the actual tower. That's so cool, hearing that ferry go across. Now there's a bit of, straighten that up. Now the reason why I am deliberately going over some of these lines is because I want to prove the point that actually it's not that super duper important. You know, you're going to lose it actually anyway whenever you add in the watercolor, so it's going to do that. Okay, and then we're going to take it on down to the end here, to this little section there, just moving across and following down the get the ramp kind of goes down like that, kind of echoing each other actually on either side. Let's get that again, line there. This is one of the things that I think is really interesting to me about the ink, is that we all sort of get into this, I just try and focus on just as I'm doing this bit here, we get into this kind of idea that because it's ink, that somehow we can't actually have any mistakes, and then, you know, we get into that realm of actually, well, what is a mistake, and you know, all of that. But what I would encourage you to do is just enjoy drawing with it, and if you get a little bit that's kind of out of place as to where you think it should be, it's never the end of the world, you know. We need to stop being so precious, I think, about it, and just enjoy the fact that we're actually getting to do it. Now what I'm going to do is just do a few squiggles and things to highlight these kind of rocks. Not kind of rocks, I don't know why I'm saying kind of, because they are rocks that are appearing kind of almost creating like a rock peninsula. And just getting quite a lot of those in there, not just varying the size ever so little there, and I'll be able to get a little bit more definition in whenever I am just adding in the darker tones there. So just noticing some of those rocks, love that word, noticing. And then on this top bit here we have got this little bit of an part of Larne that is just going across there, and then that's going out to that lovely end bit of a headland there. What I'm going to do, because obviously the sky's not present in that part of the picture, I'm just going to continue it on probably above it. It's just lovely drawing like this. And you know, the other thing that I'm realizing is this is going to be the first winter that I have with the van, and I really want to be able to keep and continue to use it. So therefore it's going to require me to adjust, and I think actually what this video was showing me is this is part of the adjustment. This is what we're going to do when it comes to the winter. Let me see, and then the horizon line is actually quite high above that, so there we go. Okay, pleased with that. And there is a little buoy in the water there, which I'm just going to leave, I think. So what I'm going to do with this video is we're going to have to pause it and just let bits of it dry. So I think that's the way forward. So let's get a little signature in there first. Actually, and then there's the, I need to get that wall in there because that's actually quite a dominant part of it. So column 25 just looks like some of the rocks. Hide it in there. Sometimes with commissions, people say to me, "You didn't sign it," and I'm like, "No, I actually did. You just didn't see it." Or I try and hide it a little bit. Play Where's Wally with the signatures for those of you who remember Where's Wally. Okay, so just let's get in a couple of areas here, and then this dark bit in there, and then also loads of darker areas out here. And I bought this little light that I'm actually using at the minute, and it is so effective. Really wasn't expensive, it's rechargeable, and it means then that I can illuminate what I'm doing in the van quite nicely, which is just really good. So pleasing whenever you get something that's actually worked out well, isn't it? Oh, actually, you know, the other thing that I noticed was across here it's actually darker too, and there just leaning just that little bit heavier in a couple of different sections. Carry that on there. Now the other thing I want to do is I noticed that actually there's just little bits of brick that are worth noticing up and down this tower here. Okay, so let's leave that there. And then finally, the last stage for me is I'm going to add the stampers in there. These stampers are from Hobbycraft, and this is another little stamper pad from Hobbycraft too. And these are exactly the same stampers as I have in the studio, but this is my mobile set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the stampers in, and then I will come back and we'll add some watercolor. Okay, so I've got the Chaine Memorial Tower. I've got it written in there. Now it took a little while to do that. The other thing that I learned was that pad was getting just a little bit probably it seemed like in drying not as potent as it had been before. And actually what was really good was just holding it on there and letting it just sort of seep in, because obviously it's watercolor paper and therefore it's really gonna take in whatever moisture it's going to get. So I've lifted out the largest brush, and it is a number 12 flat shader by the Simply Daler Rowney range. And I'm going to do several lifts here because I need quite a bit, because what we're going to mix first of all is this colour. Now the sky, I would imagine, is probably something different, but what we're going to do is try and mix this colour here that is in front of us. So just this palette takes me a wee bit of time to get used to, because it's not the usual one that I use, but I do know it a little bit. So I'm just gonna, it's take me a wee minute to get it together. So I'm just taking a little bit of that red actually into there. I think that's a phthalo blue. I'm going to take another little bit of that red actually just to bring it to that tone, and we're just going to work it across here. Now maybe it could be a little bit thicker than that. I think it could, so let's thicken that up. Okay, and yeah, pleased with that colour. Just going to track it down to give me that kind of sense. And notice that sort of dry brushing approach there that is going to really be effective for the water. And the other thing that I want to do is obviously take it across to above that little bit of headland there. So actually feels like you're dealing with loads of different horizon lines and just trying to navigate that. So I'm glad I mixed that quantity as well. Okay, so just going to let that, and the other thing we'll do is just drop a little bit across there. And then we've got on this side as well, I do actually want those bits somewhat connected there as well. So similar, pressing the brush down on flat on its side to give that idea that there's water happening across there. Okay, so I think that's what we want for there, and that's all we're going to use. Now, before we tackle anything to do with that sky, we're going to need that to dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another section and we're going to get the brown going. Now, this one doesn't have a dark brown, so what I'm going to do is add in a bit of red, add in a bit of black to the brown, which is going to earth it way, way, way down for me, which is exactly what I want. Remember, if you want to earth a colour down, then you take earthy colours, so that's why I'm taking the blacks and the browns. Now, I remember doing a scene like this before and I went far too brown on it, so really more black than anything in this. And at this stage we're just moving this around ever so slightly. Now, it's going to feel very much like what we laid down before is going to be dominated by this browny black, and that is exactly what's happening, and that's exactly what I'm looking for at this point. And then I'm going to begin to weaken that. Now this is, because this is layer 1, remember, we're thinking in layers. Because this is layer 1, what we're going to do is we're going to lift a bit of that into a much more watery section. A little bit stronger. And then we're going to move that around. Now I have no cloth with me here. I probably should carry, yep, there, it's getting lighter now. That's exactly what we want. I'm just moving that for a couple of areas across there. And actually the other thing that we can do, just letting that splatter just a little bit on down. And that's going to continue that across there. Okay, so because we're thinking in layers, it means that we can be patient, and it means that we don't have to be overly concerned about sorting it all immediately. It just made that a little bit more kind of a stony colour by adding a little bit of cobalt, and then I added in a little bit of yellow ochre. So just gonna touch a little bit of that in here, a few places. Remember, layer 1, don't want to go right close to the edge because I don't want these to bleed. So just letting them get acquainted. It wasn't a cerulean I added, apologies. I think I said cerulean, it was actually the ultramarine. So just bringing that in. A couple of places here and down in this section there. Okay, so that's where we're going to leave this for now. Now the sky, now I don't want to go towards that sky just yet because I need this to dry. So what we're going to do is we're going to let it dry and then we'll tackle the next layer. So you can see, maybe you can't see, it's getting really, really dark outside now. But what we're going to do now is we've got, these layers are now dry. So it means that what we can do is begin to introduce more layers. So we're going to take, I tend to work from the colours that I've already got. So I'll tend to mix from that rather than try and sort of reinvent the wheel. And also part of that is I don't want to waste the colours that I have. So let's just move some of this in. Now this is going to be the second layer, and because it's got that nice yellow ochre tinge to it, we're just going to exploit that across here and across these little sections here. So we're just noticing where those are. Now I'm going to try and bring this back down to, that's gone too kind of green for me. Let's take some of that, move that in, and that'll take us back to more of the stone colour that we're looking for. Yes, lovely, that's exactly what I was going for there. So just if we quite sparingly begin to build this up, and obviously I haven't said this for a while, but watercolour, whenever it is dry, is waterproof, or nearly totally waterproof, should I say. And we can begin to take this and start to add in little bits of the rocks and things like that, a little bit more detail, because this is the second layer. And I'm going to actually lift some stronger bits of that and just let that settle itself. Now again, we're going to need to to let this dry, but this is a patient process. This is not a let's get this done super fast. So if you're planning to do this, you're going to need to leave a bit of time between the layers. Now what I'm going to do as well is do the dabbing graph. So pull off the water there and just going to lift a little bit of that just so it's not as strongly yellow ochre across there. Now what I'm going to do is then take the black again. Still hear the water. So lovely. Something glorious about being beside water, isn't there? Maybe some of you out there actually live beside water. Oh, but now that would be a major game changer. So I'm just going to take some of this and actually as well, just add, you know, do much darker areas here. So do actually block marking of this black, so it's going to come right up against it there. And then using the corner of the flat edge brush, just add in a few little bits of detail there too. And then we can also pick up on some of these that are further on out a little bit more and begin to build a bit more of the scene as we want it to be. So not to forget this side here, which I actually had completely forgotten. And I'm going to take a little bit more of the black and add it in there and drop it, lift that, and then drop that down in a couple of sections there. Take this right across to this part. That's actually drying there really quickly, which is wonderful. Didn't expect that. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is I do want to try and get some of the lighter brown on the water across this side. And what I might actually do, which could work quite well, is take a little bit of this and just get just a little bit more sort of depth to the water. Because even though the water is still, it's got some depth to it. So I also haven't done the sky, so let me do the sky. So we're dealing with a really cloudy sky, so I'm going to add this really earthy, blacky brown, so it's probably more like a lamp black, and just a little bit of that blue to it to give me the earthiest of colours. And then just going to, it's actually slightly green, which I'm quite enjoying. Just going to pull that right across. And I tend to not revisit skies very much. It's just probably more of a process thing than anything else. It's something that I tend to not do. So just taking this right down to the water's edge, and because this is dry, it's totally safe to do that. It's not going to take away from it. And I can lift in and just grab in some other parts there. Just let that bleed across. I'm quite satisfied with that sky. Now I'm starting to think that that's maybe a little bit too yellow ochre, so I'm just going to lift a little bit of that. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do is the green of this land up at the top here. So I've got a couple of different greens here. One is probably more viridian, and the other is much more of a sap green. So I'll settle this down with a little bit of red and see where this goes, and then I'll probably take a little bit of brown in there too, but I need it to not be quite so, yeah, that's a bit better now. Just going to move across here. So this is layer one, using the side of the brush there. And I tend to leave little bits of white in between because I think it does infuse the whole thing with a bit of colour, or not, bit of colour, fuses the whole thing with a bit of light. I'm just going to tap ever so slightly there. Okay, layer 2, and now we stop, we let it dry, and then we'll move on to layer 3. Okay, so now we've got everything else dry, bar this little section here. It still needs a little bit more attention. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to mix this brown for, it's actually somewhere in between that watery colour. Now I need to find this one. So I always talk about mixing colours is this process of finding the colour. So you kind of have to be a bit patient and just take your time, and eventually you will get there, but you just have to go through the process a little bit. Now, I'm wondering if this is going to be, I think it might well be. That'll do me rightly. I'm going to just water it down ever so slightly more. And just take it up that little bit there. And also, I actually am going to let it go through that little bit there, just to give me that kind of sense of, yeah, this is carrying on. Just move it through there as well, just to agitate that a little bit. And what I'm going to do then with this bit is I'm going to bring in some more colour, add a little bit of the blue to that, and a little bit more of the black, I think, and a little bit more of the brown. So we're going between lots of different colours here to get back to what I'm looking for the tower. I think that's about it, really. So let's just dot across here. Now, there's a lot of water in that, so I'm just going to do it just squeezed off there so I can do a bit of the dab and grab. I'm going to drop a little bit in there and then bring that quite heavily down, I think, actually. So what's happening there is the tower is going to get that kind of modelling effect as it goes around that part of the side, okay? So we're just going to keep building this up. So we're definitely going to need a layer 4 with this as well. Hopefully now you're beginning to see that actually some of what you may have called mistakes, and whenever I do it you thought, oh my goodness, Colin has totally fluffed this up. Hopefully you're beginning to see with the watercolour, it's definitely not the end of the world, and also definitely not the end of the painting either. So I'm just going to lift that again because it's a little bit too strong there. There we go. The trusty dab and grab. A little bit darker down here as well. So the other thing I want to do is to add a little bit more brown onto that side of the wall. And there's some people outside. You always get a little bit self-conscious when you're doing these videos, particularly when it's light in here and dark right there. This is also where I hope that they don't swear. Okay, so why don't I just mix it a little bit neater for some of these rocks. We continue to build that up a little bit. And also, yeah, but you know what? I'm going to make that actually much stronger. Because what I mean by much stronger is much less water. My daughter was using, I'd given her some watercolors, and she was using them practically neat, and it actually had worked really, really well. She was using them on the back of some black card, and it was just pretty stunning to see what she was doing. She'd nearly mixed it more like it was acting like a gouache, you know. Quite a skill. And I thought, you know, there's part of me wanted to say to her, you know, you're not meant to use those like that. And then I could hear myself say, I do believe that there's common use, but I don't think there's proper use. And I thought, let her use them whatever way she wants to. It's working. She's doing a great job. So I'm going to let some of that bleed ever so slightly because that's still a little bit wet there. That's going to work quite nicely. So I don't want to do too much. I need to do just enough across here. It's gonna stay. Just using that corner of the brush there for that little bit of activity there. Now, what I'm going to do then is we're going to go up to the green again, and this time we're going to add in the more Viridian green, and I'm going to add in. So we're going to mix this thicker as well. This is going to get much darker. So it's the brown and the Viridian. Just adding it just a little bits of detail across here. So I was getting lost in the conversation that was happening behind me there. Okay, and that's going to be enough for that little bit. Just trying to think, is there anywhere else where I want to add in a little bit more detail? And I think that there might well be. So I'm just going to lift some of this across. Yeah, that'll work quite well. So I think it's actually, you know, when you mix from the colors that you have, it really does, well, it saves you a heck of a lot of paint, but not really. That with watercolor you need to be overly concerned, because it's not as if you need tons and tons of paint all the time. But what I was going to say was it teaches you to really mix from what you have. I'm just going to lift just a little touch there so it doesn't get too heavy. Okay, I think one more layer, so let's let this dry and then we'll come and finish on layer 4. Okay, here we are at the final layer. Now there's just some little bits that are that little bit wet still, but we're not going to be too concerned about that. What I'm going to do first of all is let's mix again a little bit more of that much darker green, so just making it a lot less diluted, just using the corner. One of the things that I find that can be a little bit frustrating with the flat edge brush is that it's hard to get nice soft lines, so I tend to try and use the corner of it. That's probably one of the darkest points here, just as he talks to himself as he's doing it. It's hard to get sort of rounded lines, so I can tell now when something's been done with a flat edge because of the quality of the brushwork, not as in whether it's good or not, but just how it actually looks. So it's something to bear in mind. And the only thing is now there are in that little kit there that I had bought, that little pack of 5, it does have some other options that you can use, but they're not big, and it wouldn't be I prefer just, you know, using the flat edge, but you just have to be quite gentle at times to be able to use it in a particular way so that you're going to get the quality of brushwork that you want. So what I wanted to do there, when I was putting that on, I thought, I know that there's a little drip. I'm just going to hoover that up, the dab and grab, and you can do the same with this. Sounds like there's another boat on the way back there. And it's going to let that settle in a couple of different areas there. Okay. And again, let's get this little area here. Make that darker along there as well. And also just darken in that little spot in there too. Now, for around some of the rocks, I just want to highlight on a couple of areas. I think that does sound like the ferry going past again. That's one of the lovely things about sitting here, is enjoying the time go by and the route of the ferries. Makes it sound like ferries as in you would find in a magical land rather than actually in Larne that goes across to Scotland. Maybe I spent too much time on my own and making myself laugh. Oh dear. At least I enjoy my own company, eh? So these are just the last final touches here. Just going to just bring this across a little bit more of the black in, keeping the viscosity, isn't that a good word? The viscosity of the black. So this is what I mean here with, you can tell the way those marks are that they've been made with the corner of the flat edge rather than by anything else. So just wanting to try and moderate that as best I can, you know. And the other thing is, you can't dab. If you just dab around, it makes it look like, you know, whenever children are doing spots for leopards, dot 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 dot, or circles, you know, they're much more irregular than actually it is if you just do that. I'm loving that sound of the ferry. I can't tell you why, just so nice. Okay, and I think that we are there. Okay, so there is the photograph that I used of Chaine Memorial Tower, and I'm just going to zoom in nice and close for you there, and you'll be able to have a look at it. Okay, so there you have it. That's my interpretation of the Chaine Memorial Tower. Now it is completely, you can see out the window there just how dark it is. It's completely dark now, and because I have that little printer, which is just an absolute gem, I was able to print off that lovely little picture, and then finish off and take my time in the comfort of this gorgeous little van. Can you believe it's 24 years old? Isn't it brilliant? And with my little watercolor kit and just everything that I need in here, just to be able to take my time and work through it. I hope that you find this beneficial. Lots of different approaches. I plan for in the winter to be able to do this much more, to be able to, you know, go outside when it's light, do the drone image or the drone videos, and then be able to take a photograph and work from that. Anyway, as always, keep your suggestions coming. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that little bell icon, and it means that you'll be notified when new videos are dropping. Do share the videos. If you'd like to support me in what I'm doing, then do consider becoming one of Woodward's Wonders, which is the channel membership. It just helps me to continue to make these videos, so thank you for that. If you want to find out more information about me, then head to woodwardswatercolors.co.uk. But that's it from me in Larne, in my cozy little van, watching going to finish off watching Mission Impossible 3 for another half hour or so, and then I'll make my journey home. I'll see you very soon in the next episode of Woodward's Watercolors, but for now, it's bye from me.